Thank you so much for this comment. You sent me down an absolute rabbit hole, but I do have an answer. So from what I seem to have found out, it looks like most documented reports talk about time slips where people have gone into the past. However, there are some anecdotal reports about people who believe they've gone into the future, but I guess that's hard to prove unless and until the future then shows up. I have discovered an author called Jenny Randles who's written a book called Time Storms, and apparently there's a lot of information in there about how time slips could actually go both ways, so past and future. And obviously if that's happening at the same time, as another person commented on my post, it could explain hauntings, where you have got those two layers of time overlapping. I also found a reference to a paranormal author called Tom Sleeman, or Sleman, I'm not quite sure how to pronounce it, who has written about a woman and a daughter who were in Bold Street and came across a tattoo parlour. They went inside, apparently it was quite futuristic looking, and they had a machine that could do a tattoo very quickly and painlessly. And one of the women decided to get a tattoo, so they have that done, and a few days later they decide to go back so that the other woman can get a tattoo. However, the shop isn't there. It looks like the bank transaction appeared on her bank statement. However, after they'd gone back and discovered that the shop was not there anymore, the tattoo actually disappeared from her hand. If that story is true, that's actually insane. I also found another couple of strange stories that people have told online. One person was saying that they'd been at home watching football, I think they meant American football, and they'd gone into their kitchen to heat up some food, and when they were watching the TV, they realised that they'd seen all the game previously and started to call out the things that were going to happen, which is weird because they must have only been out of time by, a few short moments. But that must have been quite a surreal feeling. And there was another story where someone was talking about their dad, and they said their dad had gone camping when he was a kid, and he'd gone to adjust a log around the fire and had this weird sensation. He looked around and everybody seemed larger and older than they should be, and then in a split second it all went back to normal again. So it sounded like there was a preview of the future. So obviously I haven't researched this exhaustively. However, it does seem to be that time slips into the past are more well documented and more widely reported from the small selection that I've certainly looked at. However, there do appear to be stories of people who seem to have gone forward in time, even if that's literally by a matter of minutes as opposed to super far in the future. It's incredibly fascinating. I kind of want to experience it. However, one of the other people commented on my post and said, what if time slips could be a reason for why some people go missing? And then that got me to thinking, because what if there was a time slip and you got stuck and you couldn't get back? That would be absolutely terrifying. So I'm being careful what I wish for, but I do think it must be very surreal but kind of cool to experience that. Thank you for this. It gave me such a good excuse to go and have another look into it. Thank you and have a great day.